Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner into a Cardfight deck profile. This is going to be on a Neo-Nectar Maiden of deck post-Fighters collection. Just a warning though, I am proxying some cards in here because I wasn't able to get my playsets of Protector Lotus or Maiden of Waterpop, but I have enough to at least do a profile and show you guys what it is I'm trying to accomplish with this deck. So, the Maiden of deck, much like Ahsha.dek, focuses on cloning rearguards. But in this case, it isn't just straight up calling units straight out of the deck. Most of the time, it's going to be just looking at the top X cards of your deck and then calling a unit that's on your Vanguard or Rearguard into play. It's not as expensive as an Ahsha deck, but it's also not as surefire because sometimes you'll just hit trigger, as what happened with me when I was playtesting this. But anyway, let's get started. So our main Vanguard is going to be Maiden of Rambling Rose. She is the Legion Revival for Maiden of Trailing Rose from G set 4. And her effects are on Legion, discard 1, and look through your deck for 2 copies of a unit that is on your Vanguard circle, and then you add one to your hand while calling the other one. Which is really nice as your Legion mate happens to have a Persona Blast skill. So you can just add a copy of Trailing Rose for your Persona Blast and call a Rambling Rose for Rearguard so that when your Legion hits you can do stuff. But most of the time you're just going to call a Trailing Rose and then add a copy of Rambling Rose so that on the next turn you can ride it and make use of its on-ride skill of Soul Blast 2, clone a Rearguard. That's a grade 1 or less. And Legion again. So yeah, this is a Legion that is able to constantly loop Legions, which makes this Crimson and Lacrosse capable of doing that. Wonderful. And then 3 copies of her Legion mate, Maiden of Trailing Rose. Her effect is on hit Persona Blast, this kind of last one. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck for 2 Neo-Nectar units and call them. That's it. She's a card from set 5, the original set 5, so as such she doesn't happen to have, well, let's just get the SP actually for this. She doesn't have a Lemma Break or Generation Break or Legion restricted skill. She just goes off at any point, which actually makes her pretty okay in the matchups where your opponent's trying to Great Stuck you, because you can just ride this thing and then attack with a column, hit with this thing, call out another column, and attack with that. And then lastly, 1 copy of Ahsha, because aside from that scenario I mentioned, you don't really be on this, so you can at least ride Ahsha as a backup and make use of her stride skills. Then for the 2s, this actually should look a bit familiar. It's more or less my old Ahsha deck, but with a couple tweaks. So 4 Maiden of Cherry Blooms. On hit, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, call a Cherry Stone from your deck at rest. It's a pressure card. And a Maiden of, which is important for the stride. 4 Maiden of Flower Screen, as I mentioned. Your stride requires you to have Maiden ofs in your front row to get the most out of it. And Maiden ofs, there aren't very many cards for this sub-clan, especially ones that are good. So Flower Screen gets in here just by sheer coincidence. Her ability to copy name is pretty okay at times. You'll be using the effect more to recycle grade 3s and perfect cards from your drop zone to your deck so that you can shuffle in more triggers for your Legion plays. And then lastly, 1 Maiden of Gladios. When it gets boosted and attacks the Vanguard, GB1, clone a Rearguard. CB1, so it's good for that, but it's just a Maiden of name. Like, the Maiden ofs right now, especially the grade 2s, are really lacking. There's no 12k attacker, there's not even a 10k vanilla. You have like a 9k Counterblast 2 draw 1, and an 8k Counterblast 2 draw 1 for each other copy of it in play, then unflip it damage. Like, just really situational things, whereas these things don't require on hits for that. Then for the 1s, 4 Perfect Guard Unflippers, they happen to have Maiden ofs in their name, so that's just rather convenient. 4 Maiden of Cherry Stones, you call this thing out with your 2, and when it boosts and your attack hits, you can put it on the top of your deck to search your deck for the 2, call it to Rearguard at rest, and shuffle. So just helps you maintain a board. 4 of the new Maiden of from the Fighters collection. So her skill is when your other Maiden of unit is called to Rearguard, you can put her into the soul, put a normal unit from your drop zone on top of your deck, and then draw a card, well, after shuffling, draw a card, then unflip a damage, which is pretty good because I've noticed that this deck does consume a lot of soul. As your stride consumes soul, your 2 consumes soul, and your Legion consumes soul, and you can't actually get all those off on the same 1, 2, 3 base. Like, you'll have to either choose to not use your Legion Soul Blast 2 Clona skill if you want to use both the 2 and the Legion and the stride in the same game, or later on. And you kind of do. And then lastly, 3-star Enablers. Then for the triggers, it's pretty standard. Like I'd say, 8 crits. One of them is a Maiden of line. 4 stands, happens to have Maiden of in its name, so that's kind of useful at times. And 4 heals. And then for the starter, I actually don't have a Maiden of Yggdrasil, which is from set 14, so instead I'm running Kira. It doesn't really make that much of a difference, as I honestly think the starters for this particular deck are bad. As 5 Silas requires you on hit, then it goes into the soul, and then you look at the top 5 cards that are grade 1 Unectar and call it, which is okay, but I don't know, I feel like the starter options are just underwhelming. Then for the strides, 2 copies of the new Protector of Lotus, Maiden of Yggdrasil, there we go. I keep wanting to call her Flower Maiden. Her effect is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and then choose 3 Maiden of units in your front row, and they each gain plus 5,000 power and a new on-hit skill of when your attack hits the Vanguard. You can look at the top 5 cards of your deck for a unit that's already in play and call it the rear guard circle. So it allows you to make up a board, or allows you to, in most cases, combo. As you can attack with a 21 column, it hits. You can call then another grade 9, another grade 2 from that one. Wow, where's the card? Basically, you can attack with your column, it hits, and then you call one half of the column. Then you attack with your Vanguard, it hits. Then you call the other half of that column, and then you attack with that column. And then if you attack with the side column, you can then hit with that, and then call like another 9, and then attack a side with that, or something along those lines. That's assuming you haven't hit any of the stand triggers at this point. So that's what she does. It's a pretty good pressure card. It's a very good first stride, although 2 I think is all you need. And then 2 of the Ahsha stride. It's a pretty good 2 of them most in your Nectar decks. 2 Jingle Flower Dragon. You can set this up with, since you'll have Cherry Stones in play as the game goes on, and since you have Maiden of Flower Screen, it's not that difficult to have 4 or 5 Cherry Stones. And then since you happen to have Ahsha as a stride, as a Vanguard, there will be times you stride into her, but none of these cards are good strides for Ahsha, so I'm just running 2 strides to go with it, so Arborea and Primavera. But ideally, you'll never be going into them because you won't be on Ahsha, you'll be on Rambling Rose, but sometimes that just doesn't happen. So that's it for the deck itself. I don't really know what I can say about this. It's okay, but it definitely needs a lot more in order to actually work. Like they actually have to go the full 7 yards and make this a legit subclan, which I know they can do because they've done it in the past with random cards such as Risers. That went from being a weird one-off clan to being a full-on subclan. So they can do it with Maiden ofs. I just don't know if they will. We'll find out in set 6. Until then, though, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile, and for those of you wondering, there will be a Vermilion update within a couple weeks, as I already have my cards on order for that, which is pretty convenient because Warning's already sold out on Face-to-Face, which is where I tend to order my cards from now. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Until next time, this is Blue Star 9, checking out.